Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named Disturbia Hope in the AITAH subreddit. The post is titled, "I refuse to repay my ex-husband for the college tuition he paid 4 years ago." So, for some background, my ex-husband and I ended things over 20 years ago. When our son was 2, he stepped out. At the time, I was a stay-at-home mom and going to nursing school full-time. He was paying for my schooling. After he left, I asked him if he would keep paying for my school so I could finish with no debt. He agreed, saying it was the least he could do. A few months after that, he got his affair partner pregnant. Once she got pregnant, she demanded he stop paying for my schooling. It was 1/5 of their income, and she said that money needed to go toward their new baby. He refused and kept paying for the remaining 1.5 years I had left. Over the years, I continued my education, and now I'm a nurse practitioner. I do well for myself, and I never remarried. On to the problem, my son called me and told me he and his wife are expecting. I was ecstatic. I asked if I could come over sometime during the weekend and give them some things. His favorite stuffed animal from childhood, a check, and some other small sentimental items. He said yes, so I went over earlier today. I gave him everything, including a check for a few $1,000s. My son and his wife thanked me and said the money would be very helpful. My ex-husband and his wife came over a little while later and saw the check on the counter. My ex's wife asked about it and I said, "Oh, well, I wanted to help out where I could. Everything's so expensive nowadays." I was really just trying to be polite, but I don't think this is any of her business. This woman had the audacity to say, "Well, maybe since you have all this money now, you can finally pay us back all that money you took when you went to college." I was dumbfounded. My ex has literally never brought up me paying him back. He's always said it was the least he could do for both me and our son. My ex has done very well for himself in his career. I didn't see how or why they'd need the money, so I asked them, "Do you guys need the money or something?" My ex said no, and she said, "Of course not, it's about principle." I told her I will absolutely not be paying them back for college tuition from over 20 years ago, especially when she ended up in our marital home while I was living in a small apartment, barely making ends meet for years after I initially finished school. I have never been bitter or mean. I've always been civil since our kids are siblings, but my blood was boiling. I left shortly after that. According to my son, this has been a point of contention in their marriage. She's brought it up a few times over the years in front of him, and she's insisting that he needs to convince me to finally pay back what they're owed. The biggest issue is now that the whole family is involved. I got calls from 3 separate family members saying I need to get over myself and just pay it back. So am I the asshole here? Update. So first I want to clarify some things. Yes, it was our marital home. We bought it after getting married. I didn't fight so hard for it in the divorce for a few reasons, mostly because she was borderline harassing me about how they needed the house for their growing family. I also didn't want to deal with a longer and more drawn out divorce, and it would have been if I fought for the house. Yes, he bought me out of the house. However, it really wasn't much as it was late 2007. Most of it went toward credit card debt anyway. Another thing, when he was paying for my schooling, we were still legally married. The divorce didn't finalize until after I graduated. There was no child support until after I graduated. There was never any alimony. I did live in the house while I was in school, and they lived in an apartment. He paid all those bills, including hers, after she got pregnant. So his finances were tight at the time. The family that called weren't my relatives, they were my ex's and his wife's relatives. I thought they were family, but they've since been blocked. On to the update. I got off work yesterday to find a few missed calls from my son. When I called him back, he told me that his stepmother has now asked for the money from the check since it was almost the same amount they spent on my college. She said it was obvious I'd never pay my debts and that I would just give him my son more money anyway. I'm stunned. I'm pissed. I don't know what has possessed her to think to ask my son for money intended for his family. I told my son to ignore her and that I'll handle it. Next, I called my ex. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again a few minutes later and it was the same thing. So I reluctantly called my ex's wife and she answered immediately. I told her the 3 of us, my ex, her, and me, need to meet first thing in the morning to discuss the debt. I'm thinking this needs to happen in person with all 3 of us so there's no confusion. She agreed. This morning we met at a coffee shop near my ex's work. As soon as they sat down, I said, "So ex's wife, want to tell me why you think it's appropriate to ask my son for money?" My ex looked at her and said, "You asked our son for money?" She started on about how she was only asking for the money they're owed, and that she didn't ask for more than was on the check. Then she said, "For years we struggled due to paying for your school. For years we couldn't afford a new car, a new house, or a nanny. My kids had to share a room." She went on about her struggles. I started to tune her out because I kept thinking there's no way she's this deluded. It may have been inappropriate, but I laughed. I literally took out thousands in credit card debt to keep me and my son afloat while my then husband was shacking up with her and paying her bills. My ex looked at her and said, "What the hell, Sarah?" I added, "It's laughable you think you're owed anything from when you were a mistress. We were married when he paid for my schooling. It's quite literally none of your business how he chose to spend money. You had zero entitlement to his money until you said I do." And from what I recall, that wasn't until years after the divorce was even finalized. "Do not contact me or my son about this money again. You will never see a dime from me." She rolled her eyes and got up to leave. My ex told her he was going to stay for a minute. After she left, he asked why I didn't just call him and tell him what was going on. He said he would have handled it and that it didn't have to go this far. I said I did call him twice, actually, and this is how we figured out she blocked my number from his phone. So those of you who said she's just very insecure, you were absolutely correct. I told him that she involved his sister, cousin, and sister-in-law. I got several calls and texts from them telling me I should just pay back my debt finally. I told him that she involved the family and then asked our son for money intended for his baby. She's crossed too many lines. He apologized and said he'll make sure she doesn't bother me about it again. We both left after that. My son told me he blocked her number and doesn't want her at his house until she apologizes. That's pretty much it for now. Captcha Tramp Stamp said, if it's been 20 years and you got the husband, the house, and had him paying all your bills, you'd think one would have encountered this concept known as let it the fuck go already. To this comment, user Pepcorn said, "I think this lady craves for OP to be miserable for whatever reason. I don't understand why she sees OP as an enemy in the first place. OP graciously handed over her intended life to her. Maybe it's because she can sense that she'll never quite be the same caliber of person." Pandora Tastic said, "If the ex's wife keeps pushing, I think OP should calculate just how much all of the never paid child support would have been. It sounds like there could be about 16 years worth. That's probably vastly more than the nursing tuition." Stepjam said, "It's a low bar, but the ex seems at least decent. Not decent enough to not cheat, but decent enough to be a good co-parent and not completely screw over OP. Shame he couldn't go all the way to being truly decent by not cheating to begin with. I wonder if he ever regrets it. I'm sure he can't be completely blind to how insecure his new wife is. Either way, I'm glad OP seems to have a good life for herself now." The second post was made in the same subreddit by a user named Adventurous Dog. The post is titled, "I yelled at a 19-year-old and asked for him to be fired. Throwaway account. I am a 37-year-old man and my husband, 39, and I have been together for 11 years. My husband owns a small bookshop and recently hired a young man to help him. This young man, I'll call him Joe, is gay, and while my husband and I very obviously have no issue with this, Joe seems to behave quite differently from us. For context, both my husband and I are Irish immigrants to London. We grew up about 20 minutes away from each other and attended the same very Catholic school. We aren't exactly flamboyant or outwardly gay, and we don't engage in public displays of affection as that's how we were raised. On my lunch break from work, I like to visit my husband, bringing him records I think he might like and his coffee. Recently, however, Joe has started making comments. It began with small remarks about queer joy and how he loves gay couples, which we didn't mind at all. In all fairness, it's a fairly scary world for queer people right now, and I understand that seeing a happy married gay couple means a lot to a young person. But then he started getting a little too comfortable for my liking. He began asking questions like who's the top and jokingly calling us the F slur. I think it's entirely inappropriate to be making those comments to his boss, but my husband told me to let it go. Joe calls us the F slur a lot, which I brought up calmly a few times, asking him not to do that. When he continued, I learned to let it go despite my distaste for it, since it didn't seem to bother my husband too much. But last Wednesday, I lost it. I was by the counter when Joe came in. He immediately started blathering on about how fruity we are, and while my husband chuckled awkwardly, I did not. Joe noticed this and said I was a stick in the mud and repressed. I was trying to keep my cool until he called me a Fenian F word, and I lost it. For anyone who doesn't know, the term fenian isn't exactly a slur, but it isn't exactly nice either. My husband and I jokingly call each other fenians or paddies from time to time if we've done something particularly Irish, and I've never viewed it as a very offensive word. But something about this English boy made me snap. I asked him if he thought that was an appropriate thing to say to his boss's partner and started shouting, telling him he's way out of line and that if he wants to keep his job, he should buck up. I left to cool down a bit, and 30 minutes later, I got a call from my husband berating me, saying that Joe was crying and that he's just a kid. I do feel really bad since he's only young, but I still think he needed to be knocked down a step or two. Am I the asshole? Edits. I see a lot of people making comments about the nature of the relationship between Joe and my husband. My husband has asked Joe to stop on my behalf before, but this isn't something that really bothers my husband, and to be fair, it's his workplace, not mine. Update: Joe is my husband's son. I won't go into too much detail for both my and their privacy, but I had a major fight with my husband about why he was being so lenient with him and why we didn't have my back in this. We were shouting back and forth until he shouted something about blood being thicker than water. I shouted back that he was just some boy, and he stopped suddenly. Then he told me. Joe is from an ex-girlfriend of his who is now unable to take care of him, so my husband stepped in. He's been paying child support for years. We each have our separate bank accounts, so I didn't even notice. I'm contemplating separation and divorce. Someone I've known for 25 years became a stranger in 10 seconds. I physically got sick thinking back on those remarks that he made to his son. My husband always went white as a ghost when he said those kinds of things, and that was possibly the only thing he actually called him out for, but it makes me feel sick all the same. Sorry, I won't be responding to comments. I need to get my head right personally. Himbalogic said, I am a gay woman, and this is definitely something I could see being a point of contention between Generation Z and millennial gay men. I am comfortable with and even prefer terms like queer, dyke, etc., but not everyone my age and older is. Dornath said, oh man, referring to Irish people as fenians is definitely shit behavior from a Brit. God Samet said, the revelation that they are related makes the comments even more uncomfortable, in my opinion. I hope OP stays clear of that liar and his weird son. This final post was made in the True Off My Chest subreddit by a user named Pretty Story. The post is titled, My roommate sent me a condescending checklist and then lost her mind when I stood up for myself. I am a 22-year-old woman living with a 27-year-old roommate who, frankly, barely cleans. I am the one who is constantly wiping counters, taking out the trash, doing dishes, and cleaning up after her dog when she does not all while working full-time and trying to keep the peace. I do not nitpick or complain every time I clean something up. I just try to do my part, and sometimes hers, so the place stays livable. But the one time she finally decides to clean, and by clean, I mean wipe the stove and toss out some trash, she texts me this long message while I'm at work. Not to have a conversation, but to give me a passive-aggressive list of reminders about wiping the stove after I use it, putting my drinks away, emptying the dishwasher before she needs it, and sticking to some decor-only counter rule that she mentioned once forever ago like it was a binding contract. She even made a weird point to say she cleaned out oil and asparagus in the trash, as if that was some noble act that needed public acknowledgement. The message was condescending, and it honestly caught me off guard. I told her I got the message, and while I understood being overwhelmed, the delivery was unnecessary. I reminded her that I have been pulling my weight and cleaning up after her and her dog more than she probably realizes. I said if we are going to start keeping tabs, I will just stop cleaning up her messes too. I also said her burnout is not mine to carry, that we both live here, and I should not have to walk on eggshells or be guilt-tripped just because I am in the same space. She came back defensive, accusing me of overreacting, saying she was just asking me to pick up after myself, and called me a little girl for having feelings about how she talked to me. Then we ended up fighting in person, where she kept gaslighting me, telling me I was delusional and twisting everything I said. I snapped and called her a bitch. I am not proud of it. That part crossed the line and I owned it. I sent her a respectful apology for the name calling. I told her I should not have said that, but I stood by the boundary I was setting. I let her know I was not going to keep going in circles, and that all I wanted was for us to live respectfully and decently, nothing more. Her response, you f***ed up real bad. You're going to want to bite your tongue next time, little girl. You extremely crossed the line beyond my boundaries. Keep your apology and stick it up your ass, delusional bitch. Don't stop going to therapy either. So that is where we are now. I guess I struck a nerve. I have been trying to be the adult, do my share, and not make everything a thing. But the one time I speak up and set a boundary, I am suddenly the problem. She acts like I am a monster for reacting to her disrespect when all I've been doing is trying to live peacefully in a space we both pay for. I am tired of walking on eggshells around people who can dish it but lose their minds when it is handed back to them. I am not perfect, but I have been fair. I have tried, and now I am just done. Thanks for letting me get that out. Update. Hey everyone, first off, thank you so much for the love and support on my last post. I didn't expect it to get so much attention, and honestly, reading your comments really helped me feel less alone. Life has been chaotic, and I wanted to give an update on where things stand. A couple of days after the fight with my roommate, I slowly started moving my stuff back into my room. One of those things was my Snapware Pyrex set from Costco. I had originally let her use it, but it's mine and I always intended to take it with me when I moved out. Anyway, I found one of the containers in the fridge with some soggy chicken that had clearly been sitting there for days. It looked gross, so I tossed it. When she got home and realized I threw away her food, she got super mad and started loudly talking badly about me on the phone to whoever she was talking to. I ignored it and just went to bed. The next morning, while I was showering and getting ready, she started yelling at me, asking where the trash bags were. I asked which ones, because I had bought the last pack and there was no way we had finished them. She started gaslighting me, saying they were hers from the shop, whatever that means. I was too tired for the drama, so I just gave her the trash bags and told her not to use my stuff anymore. She flipped and said I was unbearable to live with, that I should just leave, and that she wanted me gone. So I said, you know what? Fine, I'll leave. Later that day, I went to the leasing office to explain the situation. They gave us 3 options. We both transfer to separate units. We break the lease early, I drop my name from the lease, pay a fee, and she shows proof that she can afford rent on her own. Later that night, she texted me asking, do you want to leave or do you want me to? I said, I'll leave. I told the leasing office and asked them to follow up with her for the pay stubs so we could move forward. That same day, I went to tour an apartment I had been eyeing. It was the exact unit I wanted and I applied immediately. Fast forward to today, I got approved. I'm moving in tomorrow. But here's where it gets messy again. A few days ago, I asked the leasing office if they had received her pay stubs. They said no, even though they had asked her 3 times and she kept saying she'd email them. She never did. So today I texted her again, letting her know I'm moving out and that the leasing office still needs her pay stubs. She responded, I can't. I asked, what do you mean you can't? She said she can't send them or she can't afford it. I honestly still don't know what she meant. I reminded her this was the option she agreed to, and if she wanted to stay, this was what needed to happen. I told her again, I'm moving out. If you want to stay here, that's on you. Then she said, let's just break the lease then. I told her I can't afford that, which is why we agreed I'd just leave and she'd stay. She responded, I don't care about ruining my credit. I left her on delivered after that. Then 30 minutes later, she said, I guess I'll have to leave too then. I honestly don't know if she's just being petty, playing games, or genuinely doesn't understand the situation. But tomorrow, I'm going back to the leasing office to sort it out once and for all. I feel stuck and frustrated, but I'm also so ready to get out of this toxic situation. Wish me luck. Any advice is welcome. Thanks again to everyone who's been following this journey. It means more than you know. Silently Audible said, this literally ends with OP having to go back to the office later to discuss her options. I would not call this concluded at all. The Silky Bat said, a bad roommate really is one of the worst things you can experience. To this user, Ducky Ninja said, my junior year college roommate was so messy that the resident assistant called his mother. Somewhere in my college notebooks is a song I wrote about a senior year roommate digging through the trash, picking out items that were not his. His parents also ended up getting called. I live on my own now, and the only roommate I ever plan on having is a romantic partner. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video, and thank you also to partner of the channel, Gamersubs. Use code DLAM to support the channel and get 10% off of your purchase, link in the description. I'm sure many of you like me have a hankering for daily caffeine, so go check them out. Lately, I've been a big fan of Titty Milk and Acid Rain, but they've got dozens of other flavors for y'all to try out. Anyway, thanks again for reaching the end, and I hope you all have an amazing passage of the next 24 hours.